Good morning. My name is Barbara Fuller, and as Chair of the Board, I welcome you to this April 21st, 2026 working session of the Washtenaw County Board of Road Commissioners. Shelby Rockawick, our office coordinator, will describe how our meetings operate, how to access the agenda packet, and how to participate remotely. Shelby.
There are multiple ways to make public comment during today's working session, whether you are joining us in person or virtually. If you are here in person and would like to make public comment, please fill out the sign-in sheet now. If you are joining us virtually, we will ask you to raise your hand at the appropriate time in the agenda. If you are joining us virtually and are experiencing technical issues with audio or video during the meeting, submit a comment in the chat feature and our communications manager will help you troubleshoot. If you would like closed captioning during this meeting, you will have to manually change your settings. Click on the captions button and select show captions. The audio and video of this meeting is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be posted to wcroads.org in the next few days. There are printed copies of today's meeting agenda on the table near the front door, and it's also posted on our website. And now I'll turn it over to Chair Fuller.
Thank you, Shelby. I now call this April 21st, 2026 working session to order and ask Shelby to call the roll.
Chair Barb Fuller.
Present.
Vice Chair Rod Green.
Present.
Commissioner Gloria Llamas.
Present.
Commissioner Joanne McCullum.
Present.
Commissioner Jeff Smers.
Present.
The following directors are in attendance. Managing Director Matt Washtenaw, Director of Engineering and County Highway Engineer Brent Schlack, Director of Finance Dan Ackerman.
At this time, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Additions, deletions, or corrections? Seeing none, Shelby, if you would, please.
Commissioner Rod Green.
Yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCullum.
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Llamas.
Yes.
Commissioner Jeff Smers.
Yes.
Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes, the agenda is approved as presented. Next is public comment time. This is the time set aside on the agenda to receive comments from the public. This is not intended to be a period for dialogue. Each person will be allotted 3 minutes to address the board, and Shelby will explain how people may be recognized to offer comments.
Since this is a hybrid meeting with both in-person and virtual attendees, we will take turns between those attending in person and virtually. For virtual attendees, we have provided some instructions on the screen on how to participate and make public comment. If you're attending this meeting virtually and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand now. If you dialed into the meeting from your phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. Our communications manager will unmute virtual participants with raised hands one at a time and will announce your username or last 4 digits of your phone number when it's your turn to speak. Please share your name and address before beginning your comments. For in-person attendees, we will start with those of you who have signed up on the sign-in sheet as you walked in. If you didn't sign in, you are still welcome to make comment. Our communications manager will notify you when it's your turn.
At this time, we do not have public comment.
Thank you. We will move along then, dive right into the agenda, which is dealing with numbers. This is Dan's favorite meeting of the year, one of them, right? Yeah, okay. All right. So at this point, I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Washtenaw, our Managing Director.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll quickly turn it over to our Finance Director, Dan Ackerman, as we talk audit. We have some guests as well. I'll let Dan introduce.
Good morning, Board. Dan Ackerman, Director of Finance. And yes, this is probably my favorite working session, or one of them. So we will have a lot of numbers to share with you. Feel free to ask us questions at any time. So first, we're going to start with our actual numbers as of December 31st, 2025. For the most part, I feel like we have some good news to report, which is great, because we do have some challenges in 2026 so far, and we'll get to that after a break. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Gene Young and Philip Femininio. Did I pronounce that correctly? All right, come on up, guys.
You're showing off already, aren't you? There we go.
Well, I just have to say, I thought this was everyone's favorite session, so I'm just a little surprisid, but
You've
again,
been doing this how long?
yeah. So I'm Gene Young. I was the partner on this engagement in the past, and Keith Szymanski took over this year, but he had a conflict, so I'm going to cover it with Phil. We were going to cover the letter, if we're able to do that real quick.
Sure.
Okay. So again, the letter is pretty standard. It's the required communication. So as you know, we have a conversation to begin the audit, just to kind of discuss if there's any concerns or risks from the board perspective when we're considering our audit plan. We do have certain ones we have to consider: management override and revenue recognition. And then for your organization, the estimates related to pension and OPEB are significant. So, and that's always a topic of discussion. So we would also discuss that. The letter is very standard, other than again highlighting that those are significant estimates for the OPEB and pension. And I know they're covered in the graphs by Phil. And the one thing is there were no disagreements, no corrected or uncorrected misstatements. And again, I was not involved this year, but I'm guessing everything went as well as possible and got assistance from Dan and his group. So with that, I think Phil's going to jump into the numbers and we're happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner McCollum?
Yes, I do have a question about the letter.
Yes.
On page 5, it's the last page, in
Oh,
the
okay.
last paragraph, there's talk about the new proposed standard to
Gatsby.
Yep.
We strongly encourage the road commission to monitor developments with this standard as the potential impact is quite broad. Could you
Yes.
give more explanation?
So sorry, I didn't cover the letter. There is additional information. So really GASB has a couple of projects. I don't know if you recall, but back when GASB 34 came out, that's when you had to have the fund level accounting, and then you had the entity wide. That's when everyone recorded some of these obligations. After that, related to pension and OPEB, they were going to reevaluate that standard, but instead they kind of broke it up. So GASB 103 is going to be a reporting item, which is going to be for next year. And then this one is they may change some things related to how you recognize revenue and how you recognize expense. So that could be more significant. Again, it's just we'll keep you informed of what the impact could be. So they're trying to evaluate whether the modified and the full accrual, are they going to keep it as such, or are they going to change it at the fund level and things like that? So again, they're doing a lot of discussion of that recognition standard.
Thank you. Follow-up, Commissioner Yamas?
Just for the purposes of the meeting, could you please tell us what GASP means?
Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So they are the setter of the standards you must comply with for your financial statement presentation.
Thank you.
And I seem to remember that the initial disclosure of outstanding obligations was triggered by some organizations kind of being underwater on those kinds of commitments.
Well,
And it was hidden, right? It was invisible. I don't know who wants to.
So FASB, which is the Financial Accounting Standard Board, would apply to not-for-profits and for-profit, and then the governmental sets its own standards. In the FASB world, they had to book those obligations, pension liabilities and OPEB liabilities. And that's when you saw a lot of changes to those plans. It was significant to the GMs and things like that, because again, it put a lot of entities into a negative position.
Yeah.
So with the governmentals, it kind of did the same thing of, it was always a footnote disclosure. So like the underwriters knew it was out there, but the application of it was not consistent. So they could always go to your footnote and know you had a pension or OPEB, but it was never on your balance sheet. And also the way it was measured was a little bit not as precise. It wasn't required to be under the same standards now. When those were implemented, because pension was implemented first and then the OPEB a few years later, a lot of governmental entities went into a deficit position related to that. So on the entity-wide financial. So again, not at the fund level, but yeah, there were a few entities that were struggling. And then also you have the state monitoring what's your funding level of these plans,
Right.
because they want to get involved sooner. So.
That was the why behind all of this, right?
Thank you.
Part of it. Thanks, Jean.
You're welcome.
Anything you wanted to add, Dan, at this point? No? Connie? No? Good? Okay. Take it away, Phil.
All right. So now we'll go, each of you should have got a presentation. I think it will be also showing it here now. What we really want to do with this PowerPoint is kind of summarize your financial statements. You might have those as well. And some of the important areas, the areas we like to look at and kind of just comment on. So overall, the theme is you added about 1.1 million to fund balance. Your fund balance continues to remain healthy, and we'll have some slides on that later. And we'll also talk about how the commission is really working to address those long-term issues. So as we mentioned with pension and OPEB and those got added, continuing to address those liabilities. Other than that, what's not going to be really in here, sometimes we like to comment on, there's about, if you look at your compensated absence liability, that's about $1 million. That's for like time off, PTO, like accruing for that, as well as your debt load. So your debt's about 3.6 million and continuing to pay that down. But the first slide we always like to look at, so this is the balance sheet of your road fund. So what we're looking at here is your assets and comparing it to liabilities and equity. So of your 39.2 million in assets, you have about 26.5 million in unrestricted cash and investments. And if you look to the right, you'll see that your fund balance is about 27 million. So what this is really indicating is that the road commission has assets that are liquid and available to use on operation. So really you would like to see, and as you see, the 26.5 million, that's gonna be your most liquid. So having that available can help cover any of those costs or emergency costs.
Any questions, commissioners? Okay, go ahead. Oh, Commissioner McCollum,
It's not on. I just have a question. Are we gonna go over?
what's your plan of attack on the materials you provide?
So this is really, we find it best to summarize in these graphs. So we can go through any questions you have
on
in
here?
that after, if they're not answered through the
Okay.
graph. Because generally we like to try to answer most of the questions and we get those through the graph, but we're more than happy after that. We have copies, we can try to answer with
that okay?
any questions specifically.
Okay,
So the next slide we have here is looking at the revenue. We always like to show what kind of a comparative. So we have a 5-year comparison here. Revenue decreased about 2.9 million. We'll talk a little bit about that, but that's really timing on projects because you have the local, the federal, the state sources. That revenue kind of fluctuates with those as well. So the largest revenue source is the Act 51 or the Michigan Transportation Fund at the bottom. You'll see that decreased just slightly by 84,000. And then your revenue from local governments and your federal and state sources, as I mentioned, that can really vary based on your project. So if you're doing some more projects with the state, you'll see more state revenue. And what we'll see is kind of corresponding when we look at the expenses, you'll see your expenses went down as well, kind of showing why that revenue will go down a little bit. And then the other thing we like to look at here is you do have property tax revenue. So starting in 2015, the road commission did start receiving property tax revenue from a millage. Some of that does go to cities though. So that goes directly to those. It's not reported as revenue. So you'll see this balance fluctuate. It can go anywhere from 3.5 to 5 million. So this in 2025, it was about 3.7 million. And then that millage was renewed. Continue to see that.
the one thing, help me if I'd like confirmation that I'm correct, that in 2023, the other federal and state sources jumped, and that's a reflection of that $4.5 million grant towards our pension liability, I think. Because when I saw that jump and then that drop, I'm like, oh my goodness, what happened? And
Yeah, so that would have been when you would have received that big pension
Yeah.
grant. And that would have been recognized there. So definitely would expect to see a drop off from 2023, and that's why that one would be the highest.
okay.
All right, I'll go to the next slide. Now we're looking at the expenditure. So as I kind of tried to mention, with the revenue, the expenditures actually dropped more. So the expenditures dropped 7.8 million. And this is a 5-year history. Really, we like to show here the largest expense is your road improvements, is which we expect and see in every road commission. That's really accumulating all your road projects and then work done. So that decreased about 8.9 million in 2025. But really what we want to point out is if you look at 2024 in that column, that was a kind of a high year for the road commission, more projects. Everything else is kind of, this is more in line with those other historical. So nothing unusual, just, a little more work in the prior year. So that's why you'll see that decrease this year.
Very good.
All right.
Commissioner Green.
Thank you. I'm sorry, but I always have a question about debt service. What does that represent?
So that will represent your payment of any principal. So any like principal payments plus the interest. So
Right,
that's
okay.
on any debt you have, any payments you're making on that debt. So, as you don't, since there was no new debt, this is kind of common what you would see, you're slowly going to pay that off. And so that's going to decrease. So that's why that would have decreased this year.
I see.
And again, this is because it's the road fund, which is that modified accrual. So you record those principal payments, you record the road improvements. When you go to the entity wide, those are either reductions to the liabilities on the debt and then your assets are recorded. So there are 2 levels of reporting for the road commission, because again, you apply that modified accrual, which is required under GASB, but then you have to do that entity-wide, and that's where all your assets, your debt, your pension, and your OPEB show up. And we can highlight that through the financials if we want to go through that more.
Thank you.
Matt,
Yes, so specifically the debt is for the Northeast Service Center and heavy trucks and equipment.
Okay.
So that is what it is for. Those are the amounts that we're paying down per year.
Yeah, so once those are paid off, you'll have no line here. Like it just goes away if there's no debt payments.
But we'll have more.
Okay. You'll replace it.
to you,
Got
Yeah.
plans.
and that goes to zero, right? And then Connie, you get to, yeah.
Big plans, big plans. And if you're ever looking in your financial statements, there's a note 7 that kind of shows what your debt is.
What page are you on, Phil?
That'd be page 21. So that'll kind of show, you know, when those would have come on. So you'll see, you know, a couple were actually paid off this year. So you're really down to a 2023 installment and then the Northeast Service Center. Which I forget, is the 2023, was that the salt barn?
Yes.
So it was the salt barn and then,
Chair,
Oh,
through the chair.
Commissioner Yamas,
Page 21 of this that you provided for us?
yep,
Okay. All right, and one more question.
what are you looking at?
I am looking at this
The
that you
PowerPoint.
brought today. Yeah, the PowerPoint on page 4. Administration, those are salaries? What is in administration?
So think of our budget, the admin budget, engineering budget, operations. Primary, a lot of that is salary, but there are a lot of other things in there, and you'll see it line itemed in our budget document.
Okay.
Dan Ackerman, Director of Finance, and those are in the appendices for the budget.
Okay.
So you can see a breakdown, but it is primarily wages. There are also some smaller items, but anything that we deem is in the administrative department would go into those numbers.
Okay, thank you.
And that's a whole section, right, in the
Right.
budget document?
Correct, that's in
Admin.
the appendices at the end,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah.
which we'll talk about after this.
Okay, thank you.
next we'll go to kind of looking at your fund balance. So we talked about the revenue and expenses, any difference really will add or subtract to fund balance. So we have the past 5 years here as well as a 2026 projection. And so when your revenues exceed your expenses, that's when you'll add to fund balance. So you'll see that it was every year except for 2024. Once again, more projects in 2024. So you used a little bit of that, and that's what you would expect to see. That's why you kind of grow the fund balances to use it on those projects. But what we like to point out here is if you look at 2025, most of your fund balance is going to be in what we would call the 2 least restrictive categories. So you have assigned, which has no legal restriction, but really has like a designated purpose or how it's going to be spent. So you like to assign instead of leaving it unassigned. So that would be like 2026 budget if you're expecting to use some. Any capital improvements you specifically have, employee retirement, OPEB, putting some aside to address those, insurance retention. And then the other one is unassigned. So that's just can be used on anything. There's no restrictions, nothing like that. For assignment, you can easily remove those. So there's really quickly can move between unassigned and assigned. But showing that they're assigned just really shows that there's a purpose. And then the other one, restricted is just if it's restricted for a certain purpose, you don't have anything like that. Committed might be some certain projects that you've committed some amounts. That's a little more. That might be a board. That would be like you making a decision to specifically commit resources. And then non-spendable, that's going to be your inventory and prepaid. So that's really kind of showing amounts that you've already paid either in inventory or prepaids that are just going to be used up, but not really converted back into cash. So kind of showing that that amount can't really be used. It's going to be just used down as those prepaids are used or as that inventory is used. So what we like to look at is we like to compare in total your fund balance to your expenditures. That's about 42%, saying if you had no revenue, nothing coming in, you'd be able to, with the fund balance, cover about 42% of your annual expenditures. That worst case scenario. That's up from 36% last year. But we really like to look more at unassigned and assigned because it's a little harder to use those other categories. But if we look at that, that's 38% of your total expenditures, which is up from 31%. So we would consider that to be healthy, showing that you have those. If there's an emergency cost, you have some funds there to be able to use on those. There wasn't a source of revenue to cover it, but continuing to grow that and assigning and really having that available is important.
Questions?
Do you want- Maybe just for detail, if you go to page 9 of the financial statements, you can see the assignments. And as Phil said,
Yeah,
you know,
page
your
9.
intention is to use a lot of these for projects. Cover the budget if you have a budget shortfall.
We don't have a page now.
Oh, in the financial statements, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
I'm flipping back and forth just to
Yes,
give you
you
more
are.
detail. It's a test.
Failing it miserably, but okay.
This just gives you a little bit more detail, again, of
Where
where you've kind of assigned those funds and how you intend to use them in the future. Which again, you could switch that because again, assigned is not a legal restriction. So it's page 9 of the financial statements. Under equity, there's a line called assigned, and then there's the multiple categories that will add up to that amount. Can you page down just to the next page? Right there. So if you look up, there's equity, you have assigned 2.150 is employee retirement, capital improvements, 12,922,000. So that gives you the various categories that have been set aside for the use of those funds.
Okay.
Hang on a minute.
Mhm.
Everybody with it?
And again, I'm keep jumping back just to give you more detail if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did you have a question? No. So, Philip, you're talking about a 34%, but you were using percentage numbers that
Yep.
I don't see anywhere else. I mean, when I look at the projected fund balance on page 5 of your PowerPoint packet,
Mhm.
I don't come up with anything close to 34% in any of those years.
So our number is 2025, and so it was 38%. That's if you take the unassigned and assigned and divide it by the
Expenditure.
expenses from the previous, or the expenses, so the 64.9.
Okay, so I don't have a degree in accounting at all. And as Dan and Matt both know very clearly, my tracking is what's the percentage of fund balance on each of our budgets? And I don't come up with anything in that.
But, so he's comparing expenditures. You're accustomed to seeing it as a percentage of revenue.
Okay,
Revenue and expenditures don't necessarily.
Right, don't always line up.
Yeah.
And again, your expenditures fluctuate every year, so it is a percentage, but it's really more of what do you have left in the unassigned and assigned bucket, and what do you intend to do with them? Just like in 24, you're like, we're gonna spend down reserves that we had before. We know we're going to incur more expenditures than we're gonna have revenue come in because some of it was a timing issue. And again, some of that could happen again in 26. When projects get delayed because of weather, it's not that you didn't intend to do those projects, but you may have to push them to another year.
and that would be in assigned.
Correct. So
Okay.
in that assigned function category, you have capital improvements of 12.9. I don't have last year's
It's up-
financials with me, but I don't know, Dan, if you know if that's higher than 24
And there's also subsequent years budget, so you're
of 6 million.
of 6 million. So saying that we're expecting to use some, which is kind of what this graph is also showing, of expecting to use about 6 million. So that's why it's assigned in 2025, just for future projects.
Dane Ackerman, Director of Finance. Yes, the capital improvements is something that we have been trying to add to, and the goal of that is if we have a larger capital improvement project, maybe we could use some of our assigned fund balance as cash to kind of pay off some of those costs, so we're incurring less debt. That's kind of by design that we've been doing for quite some time here.
So when I think of assigned, I think of that money is committed and not liquid. And that's not what I heard you just say.
Correct.
It is liquid. So as Phil covered in the first graphs, your fund balance is almost all in cash and investments.
Mhm.
Like if you go back to that first graph, I think you had like less than $1 million difference. So again, these are at the fund level. Fund balance is really the accumulated almost cash because your liabilities are
Right.
not very much. And again, committed just means that's what you intend to do with it, but you can change that.
Yeah, we need the ability to pivot
Yes.
Much like in our personal lives, I may want to save for a vacation, but if my roof blows off my house, that's my first priority, right? So that is much like the road commission. Sometimes Mother Nature deals us a difficult situation to address, and we need that fund balance, not only for our projects that we intend to do in the coming years.
Mhm.
We have a very heavy project workload this year and
Right.
next. But we also have to prepare for the unknown as it relates to response to Mother Nature, whether it be a severe winter or flooding or you name it.
Okay, Jeff, did you have something? No, okay.
Really in this graphic, restricted and non-spendable are the ones that really are designed for specific purposes, or as we've shared with the non-spendable, you know, that's our inventory. So salt, you know, if we ran out of money, we can't necessarily pay our employees with salt, right? So that's why it shows it.
I don't know, nowadays it's worth a little bit, so you might be able to.
I guess you'd probably get a good price.
Fort Knox is full of salt these days, in case you
You
didn't
might
know.
find some interest.
Yes.
The other thing we haven't historically done, but we could start doing, and we need to talk about that at some point, is when we have plans for large expenditures, like we're talking about in June at the working session, a feasibility study for Manchester and main yard garages. If we want to assign fund balance for a committed project like that, we can commit it, but we're under no legal obligation. If there were to be an emergency, we can move that money into responding to that. So those are things and strategies that Dan and I have talked with over the years, and moving forward, we may want to start assigning things in that manner. But right now we don't have those assignments other than our project workload for the coming couple of years.
Was there something you wanted to add, Dan?
No.
No. So here's what I'm struggling with as a board member, this being one of two responsibilities that the board has. I see on page 5 of the PowerPoint, you've got unassigned in 24, which is 5653, drops to 1605 in 25. So to me, that looks like a big drop.
And some
And
of
I
it
don't
is if
know
you-
when to be concerned and when, and I trust these people implicitly. I'm just trying to do a better job as a board member.
So I would say, look at unassigned and assigned together. So you move $5 million to assigned. And again, assigned and unassigned are available, your discretion. So if you look at the two in total, they actually grew.
So I don't understand, if it's assigned, why is it unassigned?
No, only unassigned is basically, it doesn't have anything
Right.
attached to it. It's just like your own personal checking account at home. You use it for whatever you want to do that.
Right,
Assigned, you said, hey, this is for my vacation. This is my roof fund. This is for debt service in the future. But again, you could go shopping and use your debt fund if you chose to. So you've decided this year more monies were moved to assign. Again, those capital projects, a budget shortfall, adding to the retirement obligations. You didn't have to do that, and you can remove those. So that's why you really want to look at those two lines together. Those are the monies that are available to you to make budget decisions.
so committed,
It's different than assigned. You have unassigned and assigned.
okay.
Yes.
For clarification, right, that we're not legally, when we make those decisions, just like you said, like, I want to go to Italy, I'm gonna put some here, and I need a new roof, I'm gonna put some here. But debt that I absolutely need is in a totally different pile. So this is not legally.
Right, and you don't have to set
Oh, so
aside
different.
money for your debt.
Right,
Some entities do,
yeah.
but you don't have to, as long as you're paying your obligations. So again, you're right, you could move this wherever you want. And assigned is really a management function. Restricted is a legal function. If you get a grant for $1 million and they say you can only use it to put flowers right here,
That's restricted.
you can't do anything but put flowers right there.
Right.
You cannot touch that money for any other purpose. Committed, actually, it's in the I think it's described in the footnote. It's a higher level, but it's not as restricted is. Most clients are going to have unassigned and assigned to give you flexibility. I think of assigned as a budget process.
Yeah.
I kind of want to know what I intend to use these funds for in the future versus just Cause you could have had $23 million of unassigned. But then people may say, why do you have $23 million? What are you gonna do with it? So I think that's where you're looking forward and saying, we know certain projects we're gonna wanna do. We wanna have these monies more in those buckets, but they'll move around if necessary.
Commissioner Green?
Yes. So the question I have is, what is the fine difference between assigned and committed?
Is that in the footnote?
So committed, so the main difference is committed is there's a formal resolution by the board to, we want 200,000 to go to this project, where assigned, as we mentioned, is more management level. So that's where we're seeing, we know there's these projects, or we know in next year's budget, we're gonna use this amount. Now, you're not committing it because the budgets can always change, but a best practice and like they see sometimes is, if we know we're gonna use 6 million, we're gonna put in the statements for subsequent years' budget, we're gonna use 6 million. So of our unassigned fund balance, we're gonna move that to assigned just to show, we're planning on using the 6 million. So that the main difference is really just there's a formal like resolution saying we need this amount to go here. Where assigned doesn't need that formal resolution, that's why it's a little easier. Because if you commit it, then you have to do a resolution. You can easily do a resolution saying we want to uncommit this balance. Where assigned can just easily free flow between them. There's no formal action.
And if I may, the assignments were established quite a while ago by the board. And I want to say Plant Moran actually joined us as far as what could be assigned, what should be in the different categories. Because we had other things in our fund balance that was actually part of our liabilities, so we were double counting those. So we had an exercise, and this was a while ago, and maybe it's a good time to revisit that. To say, well, what can we assign? What makes sense to assign? What is non-spendable? So we really kind of did a deep dive, but it's been a while. It's been a long time.
So when the board makes a decision, you bring a resolution to us, bring an action item or a consent agenda item. Where do those financial commitments go? Because we've ordered heavy equipment, right? But we haven't spent it yet. But the board has committed to paying for those things when they get here.
Right.
Where is that? What line is that in?
That is in our actual budget. So we budget for those.
Right, but is that a
And-
committed or an assigned?
So that would be an assignment. So this capital improvements incorporates several categories. One of that is any capital road equipment that we budgeted for in 2025, but say we didn't receive it.
Right,
So it's in here, and then we make sure we carry that over in the first quarter.
in here where, Dan? What line item is?
Capital improvements in that big number there. And if you want, I can show you a breakdown of what makes up that 12,922,000, because in
So
that is.
where are you
variables.
referencing, Dan? 12 million?
The assigned, within the assigned.
Page 9
Thank
Of
you.
the
of the
financials.
financial report.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'll get with you offline. I can see everybody
Yes.
else's eyes glazing
Well, I know,
over.
it's in the assigned portion, in the orange. Even though we've made,
I'll look to Dan for
Yeah, right,
clarification.
and-
Thank you,
and
Commissioner.
Right, so that 12,922,000 on page 9 of the financials. Has various capital improvements, including any road equipment that we budgeted for, we thought we would receive in 25, but now will have to be carried over.
Right,
So that shows up in here too. And it might be helpful to just kind of show you that breakdown so you have more detail.
okay. You and I will get
Yeah,
together.
okay,
I
sure.
seem to be.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Green,
That's okay.
So
did you have a question?
No.
Oh,
on the
okay.
screen in front of you, you'll see that 12.9
Yes.
that Dan's referring to.
Right.
Under the road
Yep.
fund column, you're looking under assigned fund balance. And
Yep.
that's 12.9. He's referencing capital improvements.
Yeah, I
Right.
see that.
So
I see.
in that number is, again, Adam does his best guess as far as what road equipment we think we're going to receive.
Understood.
And conservatively, we budget that we will receive it, even if it says that it probably won't be until next year, but is there a chance? Okay, so let's budget for it. But if we don't receive it, then it'll show up in this capital improvement assignment
And it-
for, budgeted road equipment for 2025. And then in the first quarter, we carry those funds over.
And the same would be true for any project workload.
Yes, and that's actually the committed for construction. I've been coached by Plant Moran, if we start construction of a project in 2025 and it's carrying over into 2026, so construction actually has to start,
Mhm.
that I need to show the road commission's portion, so then it gets more challenging. If it's a federal aid job,
Right.
it's an 80-20. So only, what's the 20% that the road commission
Yes.
is obligated for? So that's what that committed construction number is,
Mhm.
again, on page 9 there.
And it's committed because by virtue of a resolution, we approved an agreement with MDOT.
Right.
Right? So we're agreeing that we're responsible for this local match. And if that whole local match wasn't built or invoiced to us, then we're carrying it over into that next year.
Okay.
Because say we're 2/3 of the way through a project, we can't say, oh, we're not gonna do it.
Exactly,
Right, yeah.
exactly,
So that's how we, to your question,
right.
carry over these liabilities and
Yeah.
reflect into, our fund balance or our savings account of how we're assigning that money.
Jeff, did you have? Okay. All right. Proceed.
Good questions.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Where are we, Phil?
All right, we're at pension.
Yeah, we're going to the easy
We're
stuff.
Going into.
Really? See, I can get my head around this.
Yeah.
It's all that other stuff that makes
No.
it crazy.
So what we have here, the last couple slides are gonna be your pension OPEB. We'll start with the pension, and what we're showing here is a ratio or your total pension liability, so that's the whole bar.
Yeah.
And then of that, the blue is what investments you have, your net position, the total assets. Because what we like to always say is because there is no asset smoothing in this, you're gonna see bigger fluctuations just due to market performance, all that. The standards require that that's shown at market, so with that, there's no smoothing. So you may have more jumps than you might see if you were to look in your MERS valuation, when it tells you about funding, because they can smooth it out a little more to make your contribution that you're required to make not as significantly jumping with that. So what's also important to know is with the pension plan, it is actually measured as of 12/31/24. So that's when year-end MERS doesn't finish their audit for another couple months, so they don't have the 2025 information available when we do our audit and when the deadlines are. So we do report it as of 2024, which is totally acceptable under the standard. And so overall, the total liability, or your net pension liability decreased 400,000. That's due to your net position or your total assets increased 3.2 million, mostly from some contributions as well as market performance. And then the total liability itself increased 2.8 million. Really what that is there's actually calculates interest on the liability. So that interest cost, it just increased the liability, but overall, your net liability decreased 400,000. So you went from 59% funded to 61% funded as of 12/31/2024. This graph also looks at your actuarial determined contribution, and that can range from 2 million to 3.9 million. And what you'll see, what we like to show in this graph is that you are trying to and working to address that. So you'll see every year on this graph, there's an excess contribution made, trying to really get ahead and address and put more in there so you can earn investments and earnings on that. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't always go up 1-to-1 just because there are assumptions that are outside the road commission's control. So people living longer, for example, the mortality tables, that'll add to your liability, as well as a lot of these plans used to use really high return rates that just weren't realistic with what the market's doing. So those have been slowly decreasing, and as those decrease, so that liability gets bigger. And overall, the rate right now that's being used by MERS is 7.18%. And we always like to say your total participants are about 296 participants, of which 127 are active, and then you have 146 retiree, and then 23 that are deferred. Not yet at the retired phase, but. And if we wanted, we always like to say like that, this graph really summarizes, there's a whole footnote on this and even tables. So if you go to the big financial statements,
What page, Jen?
36.
36, yeah, I'm sure. what this will do is it's a lot of information, but it shows you the 10-year history.
Yep.
Kind of seeing, so you can really see how it fluctuates. In 2023, you would have had the state grant, so that would have bumped you up that 9%. But really this shows, some of those calculations like interest service costs.
Page 36. Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, the page,
Before the.
that's after, actually. It's a weird.
Yeah, right.
And commissioners, if I may, the funded ratio is 61%.
Yep.
That's significant because PA 202 states we are adequately funded for the states when you're over 60%. So hopefully we are over the hump, which, as Phil mentioned, it could fluctuate. So it could be over 1 year. And if you recall, last year we did not have to do a plan because we were so close
Yep.
to the 60%, which is great. And then I also wanted to point out, Commissioner Smers,
Yep.
2025, the excess contribution was 750,000. So we were making equal contributions of 500,000 to our pension and OPEB. But you'll see in the next slide, our OPEB is, getting close to 100% funded. So we said, could we justify putting, of the $1 million, putting a little more into our pension
Yeah.
because we're only at 60%. And so we started doing that in 2025. And I think that makes sense to continue to look at those ratios. So.
Duly noted. Thank you.
All right. So we'll go to it gets shown here, the last slide. So this is the OPEB plan, ending even on a more positive note here. So really since 2006, this is when these were started to be recorded and measured and funded. Unlike pension, a lot of cases, we see this percentage be a lot lower for a lot of our communities and areas for OPEB being funded. It's usually not as well funded as a pension, but actually the road commission is the opposite and has a higher funded. So you're at 92% versus the 61% for pension. That's really due to recent changes in the plan and the fact it's closed to new hires as well as making those excess contributions. So I always recommend doing that because then you can earn on those investments. Really helps address it. So the total liability here is down to 2.1 million. Or not total, sorry, the unfunded portion is 2.1 million. The total liability itself is 28.3, but you have 26.2 to fund that. So it's 92% funded. We kind of also look at the unfunded portion together. If you look at pension and OPEB, so that's 37.4 million. You are working on addressing those with those excess contributions. And as Dan mentioned, kind of moving that shift now with this being at 92 to put more towards pension, kind of work on addressing that while OPEB, we're still making a little excess there and addressing that. So the rate of return for your OPEB plan is a little bit lower at 7%. That's the assumed rate of return. And then participants here, there's 33 active and then 134 retired. But $2.1 million unfunded liability, 92% funded, that's significantly higher than we see at most of our communities. So really good job in continuing to address.
Just to point out and highlight, Philip did a nice job of saying it, but I want to make sure we emphasize it. Post-employment for healthcare, we no longer offer.
Right.
So it was closed in 2012. That's why this is got the funding ratio it does, 92%. If we just leave it alone and let interest accrue, probably going to get to 100%. So it's something that worth
That's an
noting.
optimistic view, Matt. Thank you.
Noting. Well, it's a closed group and our
Understood.
liability is only 2.1 million versus our pension, our liability
Right.
position is 35 million.
Right.
So I just think we need to be aware of that when making decisions for extra payments. If I have extra payments, I'm going to go to where, keep in mind Mer's presentation yesterday,
Yeah.
we want to have interest work for us.
Right.
So we want to put more money long-term where we have the most needs.
Right.
So I make that point because pension is really our biggest need.
Right.
Because the market will do ups and downs and we're experiencing down. So it's likely could be we're below 60%.
Right.
So if we're going to
Right.
put extra money into something, pension's where we need to put it. in my opinion.
You guys know my opinion.
Yeah,
Understood.
so that, I just make that point so that when we're making decisions, when we get into the budget discussion, we're not making a recommendation for quarter one, but quarter two, we may be in a position where we have a little extra money. And I think it's worth noting. That's all.
But don't we typically make that decision very late in the year, right? Dan, when you see how everything shakes out?
Typically by the second quarter, hopefully we have a
Oh,
good
you-
understanding and, depending on where all our numbers are, it's usually in the initial budget or the second quarter. is
But we
when
don't make
have
the
that.
payment. Exactly. We don't move that money there
We do
until,
as soon as the board approves. As soon as that's approved, we'll make those payments. Because again, we want to get it to MERS and have it start earning interest.
Got
and
it.
So on. Sorry, I want to point out a couple of things about the OPEB as well. And then I have a question for you guys. So it's not a funding requirement. GASB doesn't require us to fund this, but.
this meeting OPEB?
The OPEB, yes. But, early on, the boards, in my opinion, made a wise decision to start funding it, even though we
Mhm.
weren't required to.
Mhm.
And I think that's also contributing to why we're in such a good
Yeah.
spot with this. But my question to you guys is, when that funded ratio reaches 100%, what do you do? I guess, in my opinion, your last retiree is getting health insurance, right? Should this kind of match that? And what if, everybody is gone from the retiree health insurance? Can that money then be transferred back into our fund balance?
No. So this money is set aside for OPEB only. So if you're putting money into it, it needs to be used for it. So that kind of goes into your conversation. The only thing I would say is I've had clients that are 100% funded. Once you become an asset, so let's say this reversed and you're 120% funded, you would record a $2 million asset on your balance sheet.
Okay.
You still have actives in it. So what health insurance is going to do, how long people are going to live. I mean, this still has many years probably before it's going to settle out. So I think it's just something you need to monitor. I think, again, do you need to really put a lot of extra funds in it? It's probably in a good spot. And again, I think that's a question for your actuary because they can project that out. But if interest can work for you and mortality doesn't increase and healthcare costs don't increase, you may be okay. If those two factors increase, that liability is going to continue to grow. If the market falls, that liability is going to grow. So there's so many factors that are outside of your control. I think you need to evaluate it each year. But again, the state monitors OPEB plans if they're less than 40% funded. So you've got a lot of wiggle room there where the pension, they monitor at 60%. But again, it's really just monitoring your population that's in there of what's going to happen there. I think, again, you may choose we're not going to put any extra in. We're going to put in what we have to, but we'll put the extra into pension, but you're going to monitor it each year to see where it's kind of trending forward.
And Gene, say you're at 120% funded. One of the things you can use this for is for payments to Blue Cross for retiree health insurance.
Correct.
So is that something that could be a strategy as well as say you're 120, 140, whatever percentage funded?
Right. So like a lot of clients and like they're paying these premiums out of the normal operations, you could have the trust be paying those and you'll burn that down.
Yeah.
Yep.
So again, a lot of people are like, I really just want to pay for it out of operations. We know it's an obligation. We'll try and put some contributions in there. Anything that you pay those premiums, they do count as a contribution and an expense of the trust. But some entities would be using the trust to make those payments and not have it be part of your budget. And that's always something you could do if you get into a harder year. You could say we may use some of those up.
So it may give us other options
Yeah.
should we
Right.
need to go there.
And just to clarify, GASB doesn't require you to fund pension or OPEB. The state of Michigan requires you to fund your pension. I'm not aware of a requirement for OPEB because they know so many of them are underfunded. Most entities are what's called a pay-as-you-go. They're paying for retirees. They're not even paying for those actives that aren't even at that point yet. So just because, again, when these obligations came about, when you're looking at the modified accrual, they're just these long-term commitments and no one really they weren't present at the fund level. So they've always just kind of been outside of that arena.
So I have a question.
Okay.
PowerPoint, page 7 versus page 6. You've got excess contributions for OPEB at 1.129. But excess contributions for our pension at 750. Why isn't the OPEB number 250? Because we do excess payments of $1 million, right? Isn't that, and we were, based on the SMERS strategy, we've gone to 750, 250, but I'm seeing 1129 instead of 250 in that box.
I
What
think
did
it's
I
the,
miss?
it's the premiums plus the extra that you're putting in, because I think the required contribution is small.
So since you're paying some of that out of your
General,
general fund and not the trust, that's how the trust looks at it is when you're paying out of your road fund, it's still treating it as if you contributed to the trust and then the trust paid it. So what this is showing is that the actuary was thinking you would probably use some of your balance, but this year you actually paid all those out and then added more on top.
So I should do 1129 minus 250 to figure out what our premium payment obligation was?
So
Okay,
in our
okay.
budget, we have a set aside for healthcare expenses. right?
Yes.
So Dan wisely puts that money into the fund to take advantage of interest rates and then pays it out to Blue Cross through the fund, correct?
We actually MERS
MERS,
send the money
sorry.
back to us.
Thank you.
Yes. Mhm. Right, and the way I look at it, Barb, is the 250 is really truly our excess contribution that we're making.
So if I go 1129 minus 250, 879. So our premium, okay. That was my question.
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
numbers didn't
sure.
work for me based
Yeah.
on, okay. Anybody else piling on?
To this,
Yep,
I don't know. Phil, are you finished with your
yep, we're
PowerPoint
finished. That's all
slide?
I had for the graph, so.
Okay,
page 19. Notes to financial statements, deposits and investments.
Mhm.
So it says the road commission's cash and investments are subject to several types of risk, which are examined in more detail below. Which I did examine, but I'm wondering, there's, cons here of this. Where are the pros of the road commission? There's a reason why they're using this, right?
where are you, Joanne? I'm,
Page 19.
where on page
The
19?
financials.
I'm talking about
Great.
each item here
Okay.
is an invest, as how we invest.
Okay,
And it says up here that these are several types of risk.
Yeah.
Got
right, so the GASB standard basically says they just want certain disclosures, and I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of strange. So for the GASB disclosures, any cash and deposits, you have to say, are they insured? Is there any risk? Are they in your name? Are they in someone else's name? And then you get to fair value of investments, so like your pension and OPEB, because again, your road fund can't invest in stocks, mutual funds, or things like that, only the pension and OPEB. You're restricted by state law of how you can invest funds from the road fund. When you have funds within pension and OPEB, the accounting standard says there's 4 categories. They want to know if they're a level 1, which means they're publicly traded. Level 2 means they're traded, but they're not at the exact price. So think of a level 1 of stock. You go to Yahoo, you know exactly what the price is. 2 could be a treasury bond. You can get close to the price, but you may not get exactly to that price. Level 3 would be, I own a farm in Australia and I need an appraiser to help me determine the value. And then what's NAV is called is net asset value. There would be audited financial statements that audit all the value of investments held by that fund, and that'd be MERS. And they have a net asset value that you say, okay, the value of MERS at this point in time is this amount. You multiply that by what your holdings are, that's your fair market value. Those are just required disclosures. It's not talking about how you should invest, just disclosing to the readers, here's what you have and here's the disclosures we have to give you on that of, credit risk, fair value, and so forth.
did that answer your question or
It-
just
it
make it
does.
worse?
I just, the rules of auditing, I guess, I just thought that, putting the pros in why the road commission is using these types of investments. I would have liked to have seen that, but if that's against the rules.
Well, that's really your investment policy. The only thing we can tell you is like, if we saw you investing in stocks and mutual funds with the road fund, we'd have to tell you you're not complying with state law, right? But in the pension and OPEB, you're really relying on MERS investment policy, and the state allows those funds to be invested in more risky investments, because again, you're looking long-term. Like when you have a pension and OPEB due to someone, you want to have a market return of 30, 40 years. With the road fund, you want to have cash for the next project next year. So it's a different process that they're looking at. And they want the governmental funds to be more conservative because they really should be more liquid cash, CDs, treasuries, things like that, safe investments.
Dan?
And Commissioner McCollum, as far as the road commission's cash, not the OPEB or pension, we participate with the county pool, and there's very strict rules as far as nothing too risky. And so I like that, you know, the returns may not be as great as say even MERS, but there's less risk there. And so they do long-term CDs and so on. And the nice thing about the county pool is the road commission funds and the other county agencies gives them a larger pot, so they can do like longer term CDs and so on. But there's a lot of rules in there to make sure that you know, that there are no risky investments. And then, you know, our 26 million is now 16 because of some bad investments and so on. So, you know, again, it's not going to earn as much, but it's more conservative, which is what you would want.
Yeah, I did look up the pros of using these investments, and I thought it were good.
Yeah.
So MERS controls where our money's invested, as well as the board, as the county treasurer,
Correct.
under the guidance of the Board of County Commissioners.
Yes. Correct. And they report, and I can share that with you, but they report on all their investments, all their cash on hand and so on. And, you know, again, I think they do a really good job of managing the funds. And, you know, we are also reconciling, you know, how much of this pool of money belongs to the road commission. I mean, I am reconciling that on a monthly basis to the penny. So out of 26 million, whatever we want to know to the penny, that their reporting or what they show agrees with what we're showing.
Jeff? Oh, Matt?
I'll just add, the interest earned from working with the treasurer's office is significant. I don't know what the total was last year.
It was over $1 million.
So it's not inconsequential.
Right.
It's a big interest earning. So it's definitely advantageous for us to continue on that, working cooperatively, because it's $20 million that essentially sits, earns interest, and then much like a savings account, we pull it out when expenditures are needed. And so it's very liquid, which is what we need for project workload.
And again, that's going to fluctuate with the interest returns, right? When CDs were paying 1%, nobody was making anything, but you do some long-term, you could get 5%. And again, that gives you the more liquidity options, because again, you have that big pool. I have other clients that might be in a county fund that ran a little short, and they're able to cover them until they can build their reserves back up. So that's another second avenue that you're gaining by being in the pool, is if, again, you don't have liquidity issues, but some component units do.
Yeah, and oftentimes we're not necessarily budgeting for those interests. And that contributes to our positive swing in the fund balance, because by the time we get to year end, we recognize that interest on the year, which was over $1 million, which helps us with a very positive report on fund balance.
Right.
And I would say the county's returns have been anywhere, rate of returns anywhere from 3 to 5%, which again, MERS will probably get you a little bit better than that. But in a down market, I'll take 3 to 5% anyway.
Well, right. MERS has had negative years.
Right.
And again, you can't invest there, so please don't.
Right.
I'm not.
Go ahead.
Yes, page 40
Of the book.
of the book. And
I'm getting it. Okay, I'm with you.
okay, if you go down to excess of revenue over expenditures, I just need clarification, expenditures, or well, that line item there, under local roads, it has the 9 million, whatever. And then other financing uses, sources, transfers out in. I just need to understand why that number is then pulled down.
So this is kind of coming out of our Act 51 report. And that's kind of dictating how we do this. So it's breaking it down. If I go over the columns, your primary road fund, your local road fund, and then they call it a county road commission fund. And what this is showing on our local roads, which is probably no surprise, is we are overspending our revenues that we receive for our local roads by about $9 million. Now, per the Act 51, you can use your balance in your primary roads to cover that. I think the opposite may not be true. But so what you're seeing here is we're using about $9.1 million from our primary road fund to cover the shortfall in the local road fund. And again, this is all coming from the Act 51 report.
And that's allowable under the Act 51, and it's very
Okay.
common. You're gonna see
Okay.
the primary road usually have more funding, and the local road fund always gets a transfer from that primary road fund. So,
Okay. Thank you.
but you're right, I don't think local can transfer to
Right.
primary.
Yes.
But I could,
Primary can transfer to local though.
yes, and that's at every road commission, you should expect to see that.
Okay, thank you. I'm not
As we-
concerned anymore.
Yeah, as we've talked, our local roads, that's probably where our biggest needs are.
Yeah.
When you look at the
Yeah.
Hazer ratings and condition assessments, our local roads there's a lot of need out there. So that trend will continue.
Okay.
And this is the only page you're gonna see this reporting. Everything we've talked about has been the road fund. This isn't a state requirement, an Act 51 schedule that they want to see in your financial statements.
You said, what's the rate of return that we think is good, 3 to 5%?
About 3 to 5 is what typically the county will, their rate of return is.
So then why in the PowerPoint on page 6 and 7, are you talking about a 7.18 interest rate of return and a 7%? I don't, that's,
So
yeah.
that's MERS, that's their assumed rate of return.
okay,
And MERS can invest in, so what MERS invests in a lot more risky, like they'll have those level, they could have, I don't know.
They
could
do have
those
level
level,
3.
they have level 3s,
okay.
which are those like the farms she mentioned, like how you value it. So there's a lot of work done around that, and then MERS gets audited, which is why we can get comfortable with the numbers you're getting. But that 7.18 is just a number that they use that the actuary needs, like long-term over, the life of what do you expect to on average earn? And they're, it used to be, as we mentioned, 8%. They determined that was way too high, so they're moving it down. Trying to move it down more slowly. So 7.18 is what they're at now. That's their assumed rate of return. There's actually a graph at the end that'll show the actual return, and you'll see how much it actually fluctuates.
Yeah, if you go to page
Of
35,
the big packet.
this is on the OPEB plan. But again, you can see that it's been
Yep.
negative.
Yep,
And then it like the 25 was 15.51, but again, the accounting standard requires that you use that assumed rate that you can get over a 20 to 30-year period. They're not allowed to use these fluctuations.
okay.
They have to use, again, that 30-year rate. So what we have to do is look at, okay, their investment policy is this amount in equities, this amount in private equity, blah, 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 and try and recalculate what that long-term rate of return is reasonable to be. And that's where Phil's saying that 7.18 for pension and 7 for OPEB. Based on their current investment, that is what they expect to be able to obtain over the next 20 to 30 years. Again, an assumption.
So it's a 20 to 30-year forecast.
And I
Dan.
think
Yes.
that these numbers kind of justify that too.
Right.
Right.
I'm seeing everything is above the 7.1,
Yeah,
except for a
right,
couple of years.
right.
You don't normally hit your assumption. It's gonna fluctuate
Yeah.
each year.
Yeah.
But again, you're allowed for pension and OPEB to have these riskier investments because you're investing long-term.
Right.
And the state
it's-
allows those plans. Again, they have to be audited. They have also certain policies they need to follow. So you're not gonna see many pension plans say, we're gonna do all level 3s, crazy investments. That would not be a fiduciary policy that's acceptable for them.
Gloria, did you have a question?
No.
No,
Thank you.
you look like you're ready. So the interest that our money in the county pool earns, does that roll into our line item or is it shared? I mean,
Correct. Every month we get based on our share of the pool.
Okay,
We get an interest allocation into our account. And then you see that in the budget too, under, I think it's miscellaneous income. We have a line item for
Yeah.
interest, revenues.
right. I was just concerned about the,
Yeah, and the counties avail to us any reporting that we need. We were part of the decision, this was a long time ago, but they went to a different investment module. And so they actually shared that with us. So, I feel like we have a really good working relationship, good communication. And, I'm completely comfortable with, that we're getting our fair share, I guess.
okay. So I rely on you and Connie to tell me it's fine, Barb,
Right.
it's fine. Okay. Okay,
And certainly, like I said, the county does, I think they report every board meeting, what their investments are and what their rate of returns are. So I could share any of that with you as well, if you'd like to see it.
Barb just wants you to say it's fine, Barb.
Right.
Or send the flag up the pole,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
went sideways.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions or thoughts, commissioners, as you're wading through all of this? Anything you want reported differently or more of, or
I like this.
the big book?
Yeah, I do. Like going back to school, I could look up stuff, gave a lot of good explanations and learning about the audit, so I like that.
So that is the required report that you must
Okay.
get as the audited financial. The graphs are really more for your information, more of a high level summary.
Yep.
I appreciate it. Oh.
The only thing that and I've talked to Matt about this as well, in the revenue side, I'd like the millage fund identified separately. Right now, it's rolled into miscellaneous something or other.
The property tax,
Yep, yep.
I think there is a line for that.
Yeah, the
What
yellow
pa-
portion is the millage.
What page are you on?
Page
Page 3 of the PowerPoint.
The yellow portion is just the millage.
Property tax.
Okay. But we only see that in the audit. I don't think that's broken out in the reports that you provide.
Yeah,
Is
it's
it?
not in the budget,
All right.
and we can go over that.
You'll help me again.
Our next presentation, we can go over that.
Okay,
Sure.
all right.
It's
Where
on
is it
page
included?
10 in the financials too, if you're looking for that number.
Property, it's the yellow bar
Oh,
at the top is what they're telling me.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I see.
I just want to make sure we're getting our piece of that pie.
Sure. Yeah.
Where is it and how big is it? And yeah. And I'd rather not share it, but we don't have that option. So,
Right.
okay. What else?
I think-
Anything else you want to tell us, Phil?
Well, I mean, that's it. Otherwise, I think we forgot to mention it, but the opinion is an unmodified clean opinion. It's the one you want, the one the state needs. We didn't say. But, and then something else that that we don't have with us, which is good, is we don't have anything in the letter about control findings on anything like that. So that, got the Dan, Connie team. There's no findings, nothing we have to report, and that bar can be pretty low sometimes on if we identify an entry or something. So the fact that we didn't have that and we haven't had that past couple of years is just a credit to the work that's being done.
And where do you guys reference your opinion on this?
So,
I'm assuming.
Where's the good housekeeping?
so the
seal of
opinion
approval?
is, it's gonna be page 1 and
Okay.
2. That's the full opinion. As we like to say, of everything in this packet, this is the only thing we add. As this is the only thing that comes from Plant Moran. And then the opinion is the first paragraph. It won't stay unmodified, it'll say presented,
Present
is fairly, yeah,
So now, because,
or presented
so the
fairly.
verbiage has changed, because it used to say unqualified opinion.
Yeah, you
That
should
changed a few
qualify
years ago, yeah.
unmodified. Now, what you wanna see is it present fairly. If it were to be modified, which I don't even know if the state would really accept, it would say except for, you'll never, generally,
My desk.
that will always get changed because we'll make an adjusting entry and that might be a finding. But what you really want to see is present fairly in all material, or so really
It's that second
that
paragraph.
second paragraph under opinions.
Present fairly is the
Yeah.
key term.
See, I look for it every year and I highlight it.
No,
It's not that big a attaboy.
Right, right. It's kinda- yeah.
But if you don't get it, you
That's
got
problem.
problems in
Yeah,
your
yeah.
city. Yeah.
Those are the key words to look for in the letter is, in our opinion, present fairly.
Yeah.
That's really,
and it'll be across the board.
Essentially
If
a
you're ever
clean
looking at
audit.
anybody's financials, that's what you want to see.
And I guess it is on page one, the second paragraph, so it would jump out to the
Yeah.
reader.
Right.
Yeah.
that's what I look.
Yeah, okay.
I
Yes,
just have a little, oh, this is so little, but,
What
on
page?
Page 3, under financial analysis, I showed this to you, Dan,
Yes.
as shown on the net position chart below. There's not a chart below, it's the next page.
The thing below, probably could have said next meeting.
Mhm.
This
Yeah.
one.
No.
That's for printing purposes. It's a formatting issue, I would guess, right? So you don't have half of that next page here and the rest of it there.
Yeah, but it should say next page.
Give me back your Tom Hortons gift card. You just.
That's a done deal.
I did want to share with the board, so this afternoon, we have a consent agenda item. Basically, the board receives and files the report. So that would be the last step in this process.
Okay.
And then you guys, have you submitted it to the state or you wait until?
We wait till after this meeting to make sure there's.
Okay,
But yeah, we will let our processing department know. It's usually a day or two, and then we'll send you the confirmation of the upload to the state,
okay, perfect.
as well within the timeline.
Commissioner Yamas.
I'd like to say I love this report. I think the only thing notes that I make is, and I don't know if it'll help other people, like as we go through this presentation, I always note like, property taxes. I know I can find the explanation on page 10 in the financials.
Oh, right, the cross-referencing.
Yeah,
Yes.
so, and I don't know if that would help other people, but as I go through, it's like, okay, well, I can find that more clearly over here is how they,
That's a test too, right?
Coordinate.
If we're reading them.
how they coordinate.
I
and
can
get a
tell you,
better
you
explanation.
read them more than many, so I can honestly say.
Would it be helpful, like, for instance, page 4 road fund expenditures, and you could maybe reference like page such and such of the report?
Yeah,
So-
I would
for
like
me,
that.
yeah,
That'd be
I
very
would like it
helpful.
too.
okay.
We want them earlier. We want more notation.
I'll tell Pete.
We're not picky.
That's
What do
kind of like,
what do you want?
Like-
What do you want?
are we ringing the bell yet of the biggest pain in the patootie or not?
Yeah, that's kind of my test. I'm like, okay, let me go back up here and see
Yeah,
what it is.
yeah,
It would make life easier.
cross-referencing, yep.
I think that's a good idea.
But I love the report. Thank you very much.
So Phil, this is your second year coming to see us?
Second year presenting, yeah.
Yep, yep. And as I mentioned earlier, this is Jean's, according to my records, 10th from when I started doing this. So say hi to Keith. I hope he had a great time wherever he was.
Yeah.
What else, commissioners? We're good. Matt, anything? Dan? You're good? Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Jean. Good
Yes,
to see
thank you.
both of you. See you next year.
Yeah.
Matt, break time?
Yes.
Stand up, stretch,
That'd be helpful.
do the hokey pokey, whatever? Okay, all right. We will take a break. Come back, please, by 10:30. Welcome back. We're right on time. Mr. McDonough, where are we? Where are we going?
Well, you saw a teaser to, the budget discussion at the, spring training yesterday, and now here we have the presentation, and I'm gonna turn it over to Dan.
Hello again, Dane Ackerman, Director of Finance. Appreciate the discussion earlier as far as our 2025 financials. And Plant Moran was definitely very complimentary of the board with all your great questions and appreciate them. The only bad question is a question you don't ask. And don't feel like this is the only forum to ask questions. Connie and I are always available and always willing to talk budget numbers. Again, this is what we do and what we love. And again, before we talk about 2026, just want to again reiterate 2025 was a good year for us financially, in my opinion. And really, and that's typically by design that, the hope always is for the previous year, what your budget is and your fund balance, that your numbers do come in better. My goal is to, try to slightly underestimate revenues, maybe overestimate expenditures, again, slightly, because we want our budget to mean something, and then the hope is the actual numbers will come in better, and they certainly did. And as you'll see, we definitely need that increased fund balance in 2025 for some of the numbers that we're going to be sharing with you right now. So,
Shelby, did you get that document stapled for me?
Yes, I put it to the right of you there.
Oh, is this it? No.
Oh,
right.
Okay, I thought that was on Joanne's side of the world. We're good.
we good?
Yeah,
All right.
sorry.
So let's talk about 2026 quarter one. Feel free to ask questions at any time.
Okay.
All right, revenue. Our favorite subject, Michigan Transportation Funds. Again, we've been sharing the monthly Michigan Transportation Fund receipts. We did talk about it a little yesterday at spring training as well. Timing is everything, and the timing as far as the new funds caught everybody by surprise, really. Maybe even the state of Michigan, right? I think they were even caught a little by surprise, which
Well,
it concerns me a little bit, but anyway, so really, our January Michigan Transportation Funds were 15% lower than 25, and then February they were 12% higher than 2025. So, how do you budget for that, right? I mean, with such large swings. Currently we only have the 2 months of history. Unfortunately, with the timing of this meeting, we don't have March's numbers yet. I know, Connie, you looked this morning even. So, probably in the next week or so, they'll have the March numbers. So, and it's my hope that we'll see closer to the 12% increase than the 15% decrease. But, as you know us by now, we're fairly conservative. So, at this point in time, we're feeling like we need to make some adjustments. So we are recommending decreasing the 2026 Michigan Transportation Fund budget by $8 million, which is, typically at this time of the year where we're not making any adjustments or maybe adjusting up a little bit. So that's definitely, the largest we've had to decrease the Michigan Transportation Fund estimate. But again, we are hopeful with more months of history by the second quarter that, we can hopefully add back to what that budget number is. So any questions? Because, there's obviously we've been talking a lot about Michigan Transportation Funds, and, the legislature did change the funding, which Matt covered a little bit yesterday again at spring training. I think it may take a full year for this and then the neighborhood road funds to really get a better handle of what our budget should be. So.
Commissioner Yamas, go ahead.
So I appreciate that, but as we talk about it, there's still a 3% difference in funding, right? A decrease between the 15 and the 12.
Right.
So I appreciate this
Mhm.
recommendation. As
Sure.
you said, we can go back up.
Right.
And you think this is sufficient to cover that 3% that may not happen? That deficit of 3%, or the recommendation to increase may be lower?
Yeah, I think this should be more than sufficient to cover where we are now. And again, the hope is that the trend should continue to be positive. And then that second quarter, I would fully expect that we could, add to the Michigan Transportation Fund budget numbers.
Yeah, I would just remind when we adopted the 2026 budget, we were all assuming that, by January, we would see the full implementation of all the MTF changes.
Right.
So we're really just being very conservative in that we haven't seen the trend on what that new MTF looks like for us.
Mhm.
And so we're adjusting back to really the level that which we saw last year.
Yeah.
For the full year. So I think we're going to have better news to share come Q2.
Right.
But in order to really be more responsive to some of the volatility that we've seen in the last few months, we want to make sure we budget conservatively. So I think Dan and I came to this conclusion of let's adjust back to what we historically saw last year, and reduce our revenue by $8 million. And again, the next slide will talk about also reducing our expenditures.
And as you recall, when we were talking about the year-end 2025 budget, we had a higher number initially, and then we got the October Michigan Transportation Fund numbers, and they were very low. And I said, time out, Matt, do we have time to adjust? And, you know, between Matt and Tiffany and Connie, yes, we do. And we adjusted that down, I believe, by $1 million.
Yep.
Our
Yeah.
2025 Michigan Transportation Fund estimates. And I believe 25 actually came in slightly lower than what we received in 24. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's intuitively, I would expect all this to go up with, you know, increased funding and everything. But I do, you know, I still am optimistic about that. But again, I think it's going to take a while to see that trend.
Yep.
So, and until we do, we want to, again, be conservative. So.
I do have a question. We had 3 months of the big dip, right? And 4 months.
4 months,
Okay.
yep.
We won't make that up with MTF now at 15% over or a 15%. My point is, we've got a big hole that we're digging out of, so to speak. Is that what the 8 million represents, is what we didn't get?
So what we
those-
didn't get as it relates to lost revenue.
Yes.
For that period
Better-
of time,
Yeah.
it was about $2 million.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So we
Right.
lost out on essentially $2 million as we look at our historic average
Okay.
of monthly revenue.
Does my question make sense?
It
I'm
does,
wondering how
yes.
deep is the hole and
It's-
are we,
It's not as bad as
No.
the 8.
as I was thinking
Right,
it
the
was.
8 is more just taking us back to a historic average annual.
Okay,
And then we can adjust up once we understand the trend. The first dot on the graph is 12%. That's what we know. We're gonna see what the next dot ends up being, and
Right.
then the next dot. And then by
Okay.
the time we
Mhm.
get to Q2 adjustments, we'll have a few dots to make a better educated historic trend adjustment. So my hope is that 12% number is kind of the new norm, and that will bode very well for our budget. And we may be able to add expenditures back in that were planned previously. But
Right.
at this point in time, because we don't know if that trend will continue, we're adjusting down for this quarter.
if I may just finish
Oh,
so if our lost revenue was 2 million,
Right.
why are we decreasing by 8?
Again, getting our MTF to close to what we received in 2025 as a benchmark or a basis.
If you look at page 5 of the
Budget.
budget document, so a bit of what we did briefly before, we're gonna have a presentation, but then we'll
Yes.
also reference the budget document.
Okay,
This is just an overall summary where historically our MTF revenue has been roughly 38 million. So we had back in December approved a budget for 45 million. That was in anticipation of all the changes occurring and being very positive of the projections that we were receiving from Lansing and others, and saying, all right, let's go ahead and budget 45 million.
okay,
Now we're going back to saying, historically, we received roughly 37 million. That's the number we're sticking with until we see a trend. That's
Okay.
why we are adjusting it. We're not really focused on the 8 million. We're focused on annually, we have seen last year about 37 million. That's what we're gonna go with until we see a trend otherwise.
So this is worst case scenario is what
Correct.
we're
Yes, yep,
trying to plan for.
yes.
Okay.
And those monthly Michigan Transportation
Yeah.
Fund spreadsheets that I provide, you know, it shows 2026 budget of 45 million, projected is 36, so 19% below budgeted. You don't,
Right.
I don't think any of us would
I think
feel
you could-
comfortable keeping that budget at 45.
Somewhat say, all right, what was our receipt for February?
That was 3.8.
3.8.
Mhm.
So if you said to Dan and I, we're gonna get 3.8 here on out every month, that number is gonna be well above 37 million.
Okay.
So
Yep.
we're just waiting for a trend
Okay.
to go adjust
Wait and
back up,
see. Okay.
adjust back up. So 3.8 is a really good number. If we get that monthly,
Yes.
we're gonna be well positioned.
So second quarter may look very different than. what we're
Correct.
talking about today.
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
So the expectation is that that lost revenue will be made up toward the end of the year
Mhm.
or at some point during the year.
Absolutely,
Right.
yes. Mhm.
Thank you.
Commissioner Yamas, did you?
Nope.
No? Okay. Good.
And that's essentially the messaging CRA and has been letting us know in advance is there's gonna be a hiccup. There's a gap.
Right.
That gap, we're gonna be able to weather, but once we get to the new revenue, we're gonna be much better off.
Right.
To your point. Yeah, we're gonna make it up.
And I want to thank everybody for keeping the lid on this because as we know, other agencies in anticipation of the uptick
Right.
went and borrowed against the uptick that nobody's seen yet. So I'm glad we're not in that situation.
Yeah, and certainly last year, again, before we finalized the 2025 documents, saw those October numbers, we said, wait a minute, time out.
Yep.
And then planned for that. And then assumed that the January collections would include, you know, the extra funds. Did not. So that's again, you know, we're kind of reacting to what we know right
Right.
now.
Right, and to further the point on the screen, the neighborhood roads fund, we assumed a zero.
Right.
Until we receive
Mhm.
revenue, we're gonna continue to assume a zero.
Right.
Because what we've heard of late is we may not see any of that until next year,
Right.
2027.
Year
So
from
we're gonna assume a zero.
Yeah.
Until we get receipts,
Right.
essentially.
And something like that, you assume zero and say you get $1 million, that's a good problem to have, so.
Yep.
Mhm. As opposed to assuming 1 million and getting zero, right? My worst nightmare, so,
One of them, right?
yes, yes. Any other questions on Michigan Transportation Funds or neighborhood road funds? It's definitely important to the agency and, you know, there's been certainly a lot of changes and obviously we'll continue to communicate with you as we receive other numbers on it.
Great.
Okay, township and state trunk line revenues, there were some decreases for township revenues. The biggest one is the Bush Road culvert, $246,000 reduction. And I believe that's a carryover into 27, correct? Yeah, that's carryover into 27.
So is that in the committed, the assigned, or the,
Yes,
It didn't start construction, so it's
Right.
not committed.
right.
But
it's assigned?
You got it.
Yes, yep, you got it. Also, we had, I wouldn't say a severe winter, but we did have some challenges. We did have a lot of, you know, timings, everything as far as winter, and we had several events either during holidays or on you know, after hours, weekends. So that did lead us to going over as far as our winter expenditure line item with the state of Michigan. Happy to report that they did make us whole and that we've already received the $698,000 to make us whole. And obviously, we want to recognize that in our budget.
So just point of clarification, we didn't go over road commission budget for winter maintenance. state trunk line budget went,
Right.
winter maintenance budget went over.
Yes.
So.
And they paid us for
So our
that.
crew essentially worked more than it MDOT intended, and then they made us whole.
Yep. And that relationship's been working well. Adam and his staff have good lines of communications with the state. And I feel like that's been a pretty successful partnership recently. So.
Question?
I'm sorry. No, I
No?
have a question later on.
One
Sorry.
Okay.
question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
That's
ahead,
okay.
Rod.
So the Bush Road culvert project is being deferred because of lack of funds?
Here
We'll
comes
bring up
our
Brent,
director of
yeah.
engineering to respond to that question. Bless you.
Bless you.
Hi, good morning. Brent Schlack, Director of Engineering. Bush Road is being delayed. That's actually a water resource stormwater grant. And the reason it's being delayed is they found a protected mussel within the stream. And so we have to do additional environmental work. And that work can't happen until this summer. So with that, we had to defer this to 27, the actual construction.
So the accounting is for next year or next period or
Correct.
whatever? Okay.
Yes.
Assigning it.
Yeah, we're assigning it.
Like how we're connecting the dots.
Oh, dear.
The more you make fun of it, the better you'll remember it.
Well, that's probably true. The more, okay.
And just a reminder in the budget packet towards the end is all of our primary and local projects. And anything that's highlighted, including Bush Road culvert, anything that's highlighted, there's a change either added, subtracted, or so on. So just wanted to remind you of that.
Yeah, and usually there's a note that'll say deferred to 27.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Think of
So, yeah, okay.
Everybody said, okay.
For the moment.
So federal aid, we have some decreases either due to timing or deferring projects.
So this is decreases in revenue.
Decreases in revenue, correct? Yes.
Making sure.
With a corresponding decrease in expenditures. right?
Yes.
So the Sharon Valley Bridge Road over River Raisin, and I really like what Tiffany has done as far as having the maps there. So nice touch there.
She makes it look easy, doesn't she?
She does. Yep. So Sharon Valley Bridge, and Brent will definitely correct me if I'm saying anything incorrectly. That one's just going to get started later, much later in the season, correct?
Correct. Yeah, so if you look at that appendix, you'll see there's federal aid and our local match committed for 26. And then the remaining amount will be then pushed over into 27. So there still will be a small amount, or not a small amount, but an amount within 26 that we'll expend this year for that project. But because we're starting that project late in the year, it will we'll only have a certain portion of it committed for 26, and then the remainder will be expended within 27.
Assigned to 27. Okay.
That's like, I'm not sure on that.
I know,
Right, right.
that one's a little.
Assigned,
Yeah, 'cause
committed.
we didn't keep in
Right,
mind,
yeah.
the assignment of our funds is the local match.
Right, the
Federal
20%.
aid is obligated.
Correct.
So
It's kind of a
you've got
combo
two
one.
funding sources going on with this project. Dan's talking about the federal aid, which doesn't get, it's already obligated to the project, but it doesn't get spent until things get built in the field.
And doesn't get reimbursed, doesn't
Right,
come to us
so
until we
again,
invoice.
we don't get reimbursed. The state pays the contractor directly for the
Ah.
funds.
Okay.
So again, that's why it's a little different when we're talking federal aid. And then eventually they invoice us for the local match, which is that 20% component.
And that'll be in 27?
Well, depends on when the work actually occurs and how fast they invoice us. So if the invoice is related to work in 26, then it will hit our 26 budget. If it's invoiced in 27, conversely.
Oh, there goes Tiffany.
budget. So
Okay.
you can kind of see the different columns.
Which
Um,
appendix is this?
You can
Tiffany?
scroll up to the top. So you've got the federal aid and state column. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see the name of the project. So under
just showing-
bridge, you can
yeah.
see Sharon Valley Road over the River Raisin. It's about $500,000, which we're estimating will get spent this year of the $3 million plus project. So, and then our local share and costs that we're incurring locally are on the right-hand side, the right column.
And going back to our discussion earlier, if that construction does indeed start, then you would see a commitment for the remainder of our share. So is that 80-20 project?
It is an 820.
Yeah, so the 20% of the remaining construction in 27 would show up in committed, so that'll be probably a significant dollar amount.
It will.
But again, just trying to tie that back to the discussion earlier.
And overages in federal aid projects are shared equally then too? Because I understand the
so-
Fed said
Yep.
the ceiling's off.
Yeah, so this is a pro rata is what they call it. And so the 80-20, so if we do have any overages, that will follow that same percentage
Okay,
of 80% federally funded and 20% local match.
It's not capped.
It's not capped essentially, yeah.
Yep.
oh, Commissioner Green.
So I've got a question. As it relates to federal aid, does the money come in first and then we spend it? Or do we spend our money and then get reimbursed?
So we don't see any of the money.
Yeah.
MDOT pays the contractor. They have control of the federal dollars.
Right.
Then they invoice us for the local match.
Okay.
Yeah, we recognize the revenues as the work is done, and then MDOT will bill us for our local share, which a lot of times is 20% of the construction costs. And that will come after.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we're recognizing the.
We don't see the
investment.
money at all.
Right, we do not. We don't see the money
Okay.
at all. We recognize the asset investment in our budget. So the
Right.
value of the project is going into our budget, but the money doesn't hit our bank account.
I see. Thank you.
Yep. It's unlike the millage, where the millage projects,
We see that money.
we do see that money. Only after we do the project, then we request the reimbursement and we get reimbursed for those costs. So every funding source is a little bit different.
But again, the county holds the money. We don't, the millage fund.
Correct.
Isn't
We
in our
request the
bank account.
reimbursement. It's a reimbursement program. It's
Right.
county millage.
Right.
essentially.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? And also on this graphic, we've got Dixboro Road and Ellsworth Road and federal aid projects that we are delaying to 2027 as of now, and hopefully that will change. But again, because of the challenges of meeting our local share, is that a good way of?
Yeah,
Finding
that's a good way. Yeah, actually, these are being programmed to be bid out in June of this year. So there's a couple trains of thought on this where giving the contractor additional time will help with our cost within that bid. And so we put that within the contract documents. I know it was stated yesterday in spring training that to move federal funds amongst years is difficult, which is true. But we can specify within our plans to tell the contractor when to build it. So we'll be obligating these funds in 26, but we won't be expending these funds until 27. And so that's kind of a game we play with the federal aid to try and make it work within our budget and within our project workload for our staff and what have you.
And it helps with the contractor. If they
Yes.
feel they can accomplish the work this year, then
Yep.
it gets done.
That's
If
right.
not, they'll roll over into next year. So it gives them more flexibility with the hope and mindset. Giving them more flexibility means lower pricing. Potentially.
I believe the same applies to these three federal aid projects, Grove Street, Stony Creek Road, and Textile Road. Again, the road commission's share is something that we couldn't necessarily justify at this time, given all of our other fiscal restraints. So these will be carried over into 2027.
I will note that the Dixboro, Ellsworth, Grove, Stony Creek, those are our preventive maintenance projects that will follow what I described, where we're giving that contractor a little more time. The textile project is a safety funded project, which is capped funds at $750,000. That project for sure will not be built until 2027. We specified to that contractor that we will be obligating these funds this year, but we are not to start construction until the following year, until 2027.
Commissioner Yamas?
So if that's a safety issue,
Yep, so we applied for safety funds. Basically, that's to install a center left turn lane along Textile Road between Here Drive and Bridge. So we did see some safety, crash trends along that segment of road, and so we applied for funds and we were awarded those safety funds for 2026.
We also are working to secure right of way and NEPA clearance, so
Correct.
there's a number of components that we have to meet before we can get into a MDOT bid letting, and we're not quite there yet.
okay, so, you were awarded the funds, but the funds haven't been received, right? That's why we
Grant-
could move it.
The grant
money?
was awarded.
Yeah.
And then we have to essentially design it, get all the permits, purchase all the right of way, get the clearance for Environmental Protection Act, NEPA, National Environmental Protection Act. And then after all that's done, MDOT then will submit for obligation. Then those funds that were awarded via grant get obligated,
Okay,
and then we go to bid. So we're not to the point where we can submit for obligation. That will happen before the year is over, but construction definitely won't occur until 27.
okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Questions on that? Other contributions, Tiffany, could you pull up page 9 of the narrative? Want to talk millage funds. We actually are able to add about $450,000 for millage funds, and these are related to carryover projects. But if the board wants to go to page 9, Commissioner Fuller, I know you had asked
Page
about
9 of what?
of the budget narrative, the big budget document.
Okay, I'm with you.
Tiffany has it right on the
Yep.
the screen there. So so you can see that the highlighted portion, we do acknowledge the millage funds. And initially we were expecting about 6.3. So typically it's about 5 million that we're receiving, plus or minus with interest. But there were some projects, were we not able to get to them last year? Is that why we're carrying those over?
State
Yeah.
road.
Okay.
Correct, yes.
Yes. And so we carried over the revenues for those projects as well. So that's why you see 6.3 million, and we're gonna add another 450,000 to that. So definitely a big millage program this year.
Commissioner McCollum.
Yes, I'm glad we're highlighting this. This is where my question was. So it says up at the top, a payment was received from the city of Dexter for pavement markings at Baker Road.
Mhm.
So is that in here somewhere? Because it's here it says percentage received and it's 0.
Yeah, so it's that $1,930, and I believe $2,000 as a percentage of 1 million is probably 0.0 something. So that's why I think it's showing 0. Because it's just rounding.
That's confusing.
Okay. We
It
could,
should have, you don't put in 0 point something percentage?
we typically round it
Do
to,
you?
yeah, to round percentages, if you will, but we could go out more decimal places if you'd
Well,
like.
I guess if that's how it's done, but
Okay.
it was just confusing to
Yeah.
me because of like,
Uh-huh,
looks like they did receive something, but they're.
Right.
percent.
yeah.
Okay.
And maybe we could do that if it's creating a scenario like that. Show out a few more decimal points. Yeah.
Just for me.
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
It's all about you.
Yeah, it's all about you. So any questions on the millage, or, how we report on it, or why it's a higher amount now? Or again, just wanted to make sure I covered that based on this morning's.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, we also have an increase of 862,000 for additional projects, and you can see them there, Bush Road, Waterloo and Roki. And that's, we received some money from consumers, and we're trying our best to spend that down.
All of this is consumers?
Not all.
No, I believe. that
Those
all-
three, yeah.
Oh,
all those
862?
three, correct,
I
yeah.
was thinking the 450, my apologies.
Oh, yeah.
852,
The
no,
862,
related to
right.
consumers.
Mhm.
Other contributions is the millage fund.
Looks like we have a question.
Yep. Commissioner Smers, I'm not used to seeing your hand over there.
Is this due to pipeline and things of that nature from consumers?
Yeah, so we entered into a road improvement agreement with consumers for that pipeline that went through
Couple
the
years
west
ago.
side of Chelsea, and yes, so we're still working through projects.
Oh, I know on North Territorial and some other areas, there's been some work and where it humped and sunk and everything else. So that makes sense that this is all getting fixed and consumers is doing their part. So that's,
Yep.
that's good. Good to note.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Humped and sunk.
Different parts pumped. and different
That's
parts
technical.
sunk. It's very technical.
Did a great job controlling your facial expression, Brett.
Yeah,
That's the way it was
I
put.
understood it.
That's the way it was
Yeah.
put to me when I heard it out in Linden. So, yes. I might have brought that up for a specific reason.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, moving on. Yeah, I'm probably good. Thanks, Brenda. Won't go too far away. Expenditures. So this was an assignment of our fund balance in 2025 for road equipment that, again, we thought we would receive. And, you know, my question to operations is, will we receive it by December 31st, 2025? And if their answer is maybe or doubtful, we want to include it, right, conservatively, and if not, we can carry it over. So as far as our road equipment for 2025, there's about 638,000 that we are carrying over. And there were some yard and storage projects for 307,000 that we're also carrying it over. And again, why do we want to carry that over? So you're not cutting into the budgets for 2026. And unfortunately for 2026, we did have to decrease for projects and equipment purchases. You can see we've got about 2 million for road equipment deferred to 2027 and about 250,000 for facility projects that, again, given our $8 million decrease in Michigan transportation funds, some of these things we couldn't justify including right now, and hopefully we can restore some of it in the second quarter. I
Yeah,
believe.
so road equipment, one of the deferrals is the fitting up of our heavy trucks. That's just physically not gonna happen due to the demand for they just can't accomplish the work this year. We're gonna defer that till 27. We won't receive those 5 units until next year. We have the cabin chassis. We won't have the completed heavy truck until next year. We did defer, I think, a mower max. We may be able to add that back into the budget in second quarter. And then the facility reduction projects, we eliminated the design of Manchester and the main yard, just we're not there yet. And we needed to essentially cut some of our project expenditures. We may also add that late in the year, but ultimately, with a cut in revenue, you've got to also cut expenditures.
Yeah.
Commissioner McCollum.
So we do have that one mower max though,
Mhm.
right?
From last
We
year.
received that
we purchased.
last year.
Yep. Mhm.
Yep.
How's that working out?
I can't speak to that. We can
But
have
yeah,
Adam
Adam.
report on that next time.
Thank you.
But I have not heard anything.
Yeah, I've heard that everybody really likes it and it's more efficient and cleaner looking, but yeah, I'm sure Adam could go into as much detail as you like with that, so.
As I drive out out county, you can almost tell where the mower max has been and where
Okay.
the boom mower's been.
Yes, right,
Looks very different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Great.
mower max is much better.
Mhm.
Much better.
Madam
Commissioner
Chair.
Green.
So the road equipment is not recognized as a line item until we receive it.
We have to actually receive it and pay for it, and then it hits our budget, right?
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And just as a reminder, there's an appendix on the capital road equipment too in your budget packet. If you want to see any
Highlighted in
details.
Yes, I believe it's Appendix L,
What page?
page 30. So you can see the changes we made.
Has the details.
highlighted
Yep.
in yellow.
Yep.
Through the chair, it's highlighted. Sorry, go ahead. It's highlighted in yellow, right?
Mhm.
Any changes you?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
You've got us trained on that point.
Yeah. Kind of jumps out at you, right?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So as far as other changes for road projects, there were a few projects that were added, but they're in the design stage, so obviously not significant dollars. And again, when you look at the listing of road projects, I believe the whole line would be highlighted in yellow. Definitely the name of the project, so you can see which ones that we added, and then the description would say design on it.
No,
No,
no need.
I think we're
Yeah.
good, yeah. And as far as projects deferred, we kind of talked about that a little bit, culvert replacement projects. There are some millage projects for this year that will be deferred, and then we talked about the federal aid projects as well. Again, second quarter, we'll revisit all of this for sure. And we did have some amendments for some 2026 projects that definitely we wanted to definitely move forward on. Dexter Island Lake Road Corridor, Old US 12, and Workner Road. And I can't necessarily speak to why the increases were they for bid pricing, or yeah, Brent, why don't you come on up?
Brent Schleck, Director of Engineering. Yeah, as we estimated these projects, the cost for our local match went up, and so we wanted to account for that within our budget. So the Dexter Island Lake did get bid out, and I don't have it on top of my tongue on what that actual cost is, but whenever we were working through the bidding through MDOT, we saw that those costs had increased compared to what we had previously estimated. So we wanted to account for that. Same thing for Old 12. Actually, we expanded the limits of this project some to account for a safety project that we were looking at within, there's some curves on Old 12 just east of I-94. So we expanded our limits some to provide fresh pavement so that we could have a non-friction surface applied to those curves on Old 12. Workner Road, that's just due to some of the changes that we had made as we worked through that project.
And keep in mind, when we adopted the budget in December, the numbers were based in November. Those designs were nearing completion, but they had not been completed. And now we have the designs complete. In fact, a lot of times we've already bid out the project. So
Correct.
these adjustments are due to essentially as you're designing the project and you're working your way down the funnel and getting closer to construction, that's when we have better refined estimates and sometimes bid out prices. So these changes reflect just you're further along in the project's life, knowing more accurately what the cost may be.
Did you have a question? Go ahead.
Yes, this question is not related to the budget, but what is the length of the Workner Road project?
It's just under a mile. So it actually, because we broke it up in two different segments, so we have like 1,200 feet of just mill and resurface, and then the remainder just under a mile or 3/4 of a mile of pulverization or reconstruct north of that 1,200 feet, or right around the city of Chelsea DPW driveway.
And in order to minimize impacts, we had to build a lot of curb
Yes.
and do a lot of drainage work with pipes so that we can minimize impact. So the cost went up significantly.
Right.
And when is that project due to begin?
So it's gonna get bid out here.
Yeah, it's gonna be bid out and, what we're waiting for is we have a culvert that we're replacing on Workner Road as well. Which again, that elevated the price as well because we've seen those structures, just the prices increase. And that has a restriction, due to Eagle, so we can't get into that stream, until after July. So that project will be later in the season, most likely like an August, September timeframe, so that we can.
This year.
Of this year, yes, sir.
Commissioner McCollum.
Yes, so the increases, I'm looking at page 24.
Thank you.
Under the Dexter Chelsea Island. And so the 450,000, that's under consultant services and materials. Am I looking at this right?
That number corresponds, yes, but the increases are mainly in the contracted constructed.
Where it says 1,750,000.
Yeah, yep.
So
Yep.
what was the increase from previous?
So it was at $450,000 increase overall project. It was mainly due to the scope of the project and the amount of work that's being accomplished.
Yeah.
So if I subtract the 450,000 from the 1,750,500, or some.
So if you look at, you don't have this in front of you,
Right.
but if you had your budget document that we approved back in
Our preliminary budget.
December,
Yes.
you would go back to that project and then you would reference, all right, what were the numbers before? And I can read them to you, but
Thank
can't show them to you.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, it's, it was $1.4 million.
Okay, I see.
And then the consultant services was 350, now it's 450.
Okay,
So again, that's where the increases where it was in the local match for the
and,
construction. And then the consultant services went up 100,000 as well.
thank you.
You bet. Yep.
And you don't see it with your spreadsheets, but, Brent is kind enough to put all that math in there to make it a little easier for me to know what's going up and what's going down. So we actually, in our spreadsheets, we have the formulas with the numbers that just what's changed, how much. Those are all embedded in these spreadsheets, which is very helpful, so.
And then as we're reviewing, we always have the old budget, looking
Right.
at the
Yep.
new budget highlighted, and we have numerous people, eyes on it, looking at, all right, what are the changes? Understand all the impacts. It's a lot to consume, I understand, so good questions.
Thank you.
All right, just trying to get back to where we were. Okay, any other questions on this page here?
So Workner Road is not finished and won't be until next year?
No, it'll go this year, but it'll happen in the, most likely end of summer, fall, timeframe.
Okay,
Yeah, we got the tree removal completed. Now we are essentially gonna do the culvert work, but that can't take place until July, so it'll happen this year, but not till after July. Yep.
so just to be clear, if anyone's listening, all those yellow ribbons on trees do not indicate removals. Those are not.
Yeah, we are complete with our tree removal. So what you see out there will remain.
Thank you.
Yes. Yep.
Commissioner Green, and then Commissioner Yamas.
So the yellow ribbons are trees that will remain?
They will remain. The tree removals that have taken place have taken place. So if you have traveled that road, the trees that are remaining there will continue to remain.
We're not touching any.
We are
of
not
those.
touching any further. We're not cutting any further.
Those aren't our.
Okay,
They are
but
not
does
our
the public
ribbons.
know what those yellow ribbons mean, or?
We didn't have anything to do with
They're not ours.
the placement of those ribbons.
Oh, okay,
That's.
all right.
We
I
can
mean, I'm just saying,
out there.
if I were a resident and I saw a yellow ribbon, I might have a
Yep.
thought as to.
Yeah, and that was part of the misinformation that
Yeah.
as we worked through that project, and I feel we did an excellent job at trying to communicate and be transparent with our process. And it was a lot of that misinformation on actually what was going to take place. Yeah, we've gotten those same calls that you have these yellow ribbons around these trees, and when are those going to be removed? And they're not going to be removed. Those will remain.
Okay, so why the ribbon?
Residents felt compelled to put the ribbon on the tree.
Or they put the ribbon?
Yes.
We had
Oh, I
nothing to
see.
do with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Since they're not ours,
Yes.
we can't mess with them.
Right, understand.
Be ill-advised.
Amen.
Commissioner Smers,
And maybe this is the wrong time to ask, but is it worth putting a message board out there saying tree removal's done? Or is it?
I believe we have a project update that has gone out, and for all those that have signed up for that, we have informed them that our tree removal has been completed.
I just drove it recently and there's even more ribbons out there. So it's a lot. And it's,
Mhm.
as you said, misleading.
It is, yes.
Commissioner Yamas, did you? I don't know what your hands are doing.
Well, I did have a question. So the roads are still open, right? They haven't been closed yet for the
No.
project?
For the Working Road project?
Yes, for the Workner Road.
Yeah,
project.
that road remains open until we start that project.
So since it's gonna not start until after July, is that correct?
That's
For the
correct.
culvert work, because we can't get into the stream.
Correct.
How long is it anticipated for that project to take?
It'll take us, 3 to 4 weeks to complete the project.
Okay,
So depending on weather, but yeah, it should go pretty quickly once we get out there. And that's one reason we like to close the road for those pulverizations. We have done projects where we've left them open, but it's very difficult to manage all that traffic. So if we do pulverize a road, we like to close it, and then it just helps expedite that.
And in this case, we're replacing a culvert, so.
Yes.
They can't cross it. We're
Yeah,
replacing
good
it, so
point.
the closure is even more necessary.
thank you.
And I'm sure the closures are helpful for worker safety as
Right.
well.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, and you can
Very
see
much so.
Tiffany has on the screen the latest update. If you could scroll down, it says specifically that the tree removals, gives an update there.
Yep.
Has completed the tree removals, the first.
And all the stumps have been removed. I know in this update, it says the contractor has returned and performed all the stump removals as well. So we are done with any type of tree work on this or forestry work on this, on Workner Road.
And ultimately, we haven't heard a lot, so I don't think it's probably appropriate to make any more noise on this project.
I guess that was more my
Yeah.
question.
Yes.
Matt is the master at one-word responses. Or no-word responses.
No news is good news sometimes.
Any other questions on this slide?
I want to, again, compliments to engineering, communications, and our managing director for going overboard on the Dexter Island Lake Road corridor information. I mean, Matt's been to several Dexter Forum meetings to answer questions and share maps. Tiffany's done a great job of pushing this stuff out regularly, and of course, engineering's been great about making sure we're over-informing nearly
Thank you.
on these projects.
Thank you.
Because Matt, you were there on Saturday, and I don't think there was, I mean, you talked to a few people afterwards, but there was no big uprising from the people in attendance there.
Those that were in attendance seem to be well informed previously. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're excited for that project to start.
I call that the A&W project.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Any other questions on this slide? Okay. Moving on, so again, given the financial challenges staff did not feel we could include our additional OPEB and pension payment, which is about $1 million that we've been contributing. Again, hopefully second quarter, when we see some more MTF results, hopefully that's something we can consider to add back in the second quarter. So I usually include this graphic just about the balanced approach that we take, many competing needs that we have. Obviously, as much funds as we can justify, we want to go into the roads. That's what we do. But we also have financial obligations, pension, OPEB, and so on. We want to make sure we're meeting those. We also want to make sure we're compensating our employees appropriately. And, you know, again, the job market's very competitive, so we want to get the best and brightest to come to Washtenaw. So we want to make sure we're compensating people appropriately. And equipment and facilities, they get old, they get, you know, we definitely use our road equipment a lot. So we want to make sure we're making sure our drivers have appropriate and safe equipment to use. And obviously we're looking into our facilities as well. And besides more of the, you know, fixing things, we also want to look at some bigger initiatives too in the future. So all these competing needs and again, making sure we have a healthy fund balance, obviously, in case of emergencies. So as far as our fund balance, thinking back to December, our initial projected fund balance was 16.3 million for 2025. The actual fund balance was 27 million. Again, there are some carryovers included in there, but definitely, you know, glad to see the numbers the way they are. Again, with everything in 2026, all the challenges, that's a good spot for us to be in. And as far as quarter one, and the initial for 2026, sorry, the projected fund balance preliminarily was about $10 million, which we typically don't like to go any lower than that. But with all the changes that we are proposing for the first quarter, and again, with our actual fund balance being 27.4 million, the 2026 projected fund balance would be 17.7 million, which, you know, again, would I like to be double? Of course I would, but, you know, competing interests, all the things we want to do, the 17.7 million, I think is a decent spot to land.
I will add, you know, this still accomplishes, got over $90 million of expenditures.
Right.
Huge investment relates to the organization. A lot of those are in project reimbursable projects, you know, over 50 million. So that's a big investment. A lot of it is our project workload. And then we're essentially only spending down our fund balance by $10 million. And we're landing in a much better place than we had originally projected back in December, with that fund balance now being projected at 17.7. And if the revenue trends up, we will hopefully do a little better than that. So stay tuned.
I have one, I hope it's a little question. Anticipating improvements in yard 1 and yard 4. Do we have what Barb Fuller would call a savings account planning towards those improvements in the future? We kind of did that with the Northeast Service Center, right? We had to buy that property and then construct the building. And I don't remember how we planned.
Yeah, right now
Or that.
we're working through that feasibility study.
Right.
So we don't really have a number we're planning for yet. But that is the hope that when we complete the feasibility study, and that's scheduled for a working session in June,
Right.
then we will start establishing those funds to start putting money away. That's the goal. And with us being well positioned this year and revenue going up, hopefully we can set aside on the annual basis and really assign some fund balance for facilities, yards 4 and 1, garages, essentially. But we'll get into the details, later in June.
You had to get that term in there assigned, didn't you?
Yes, exactly. Well,
Right.
we're-
It's all about me.
You know,
Right.
it's
The word of the day.
It's not necessarily committed because it's not under construction.
Right.
Right.
But the assigned term, I think, is very appropriate as we're setting aside
Yeah.
fund balance for a future expenditure that's going to be a big number. We're talking tens of millions.
Right. I just don't want us to get to a point where we've committed a portion that we then have to really dip to do these projects. I mean, if I'm gonna put a new roof on my house and I know in 3 years I've got to do that, I know it's gonna cost something.
Yeah.
That I don't have in my budget for this year, so try to squirrel away incrementally rather than taking a big hit in 3 years.
Right.
So is that something we do financially, or we're thinking fund balance is there and when we get to it, we'll be okay?
So going back to this morning, we do have an assignment for capital projects of about $12 million.
Okay.
Again, there's a breakdown of what that entails, but you could look at that as a starting point.
Okay,
And, traditionally, when we've had larger capital initiatives, we've done a mix of trying to pay cash a little bit and then financing the
Right.
rest, which I think is a good strategy. So our debt to equity ratio is very low. As you saw the graphs from Plant Moran, our debt service each year is coming down, which is great. But that also means then you have that capacity, if we need to do bonds or installment purchases for any of these facilities for a portion of it.
how do we do the salt barn? Did we save ahead or I'm sorry, I don't
The
remember.
Salt barn, there were like 3 sources. We did installment purchases, we paid some cash, and then MDOT actually contributed as
Oh,
well.
right,
so.
right,
Right.
right.
Yeah, so historically, when we do major investment facilities, there'll be some component of debt.
A blend, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
MDOT will not help us with the garage. It's not gonna
Get
happen.
away.
So,
Yeah,
they do help with material storage, so that was a component of the master plan for this yard. So when we built the salt barn, they contributed millions, which was great.
Yes.
Because it costs millions.
Right.
Ultimately, when we were planning for Manchester yard and a garage and truck wash for this yard, that's gonna be on our own. So we're going to have to save some and then borrow the rest. And
Okay.
so we are fortunate because the Northeast Service Center is going to fall off.
Right,
The debt will essentially be all paid off.
Yeah.
And so that may be an opportune time to look at starting construction on yet another facility project. That was a long-term investment.
right.
I believe that came online in 2018. It was a 10-year loan for that debt service. Probably look at something similar.
Okay. Trying to think push that horizon out a little bit. And it seems to me, do we recapture from MDOT some revenue because of our contract for maintaining trunk lines? I mean, don't we get,
It pays for that crew.
and the equipment, right? Don't we
Yes,
have
get
some,
Equipment reimbursement,
yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
not facility.
And,
right.
and in that
Yeah, but if we're
capital,
washing those trucks.
I want to say in that capital line item, there is one for equipment where we put the money we received for from those audits for the equipment from the
Mhm.
state,
Mhm.
that we're building that up as well. And potentially instead of doing an installment purchase for say 5 trucks,
Mhm.
we could use that assignment.
That's
pay
kind of the
cash.
Bill McFarlane issue, right? The depreciation
Right.
idea. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Anybody else? Commissioner Green?
Yes, okay. The projected fund balance represents 16% of expenditures. Is there a particular percentage goal that we try to maintain?
Good question. Plant Moran's recommendation is between 15 to 25%.
Okay,
So certainly it's on the lower end. But again, what's MTF going to do? There's still a lot of unknowns at this point. So, but I think staff feels pretty comfortable. We look at the percentage of expenditures and we also look at the overall amount. And, as I mentioned, we look at 10 million as kind of the floor. And so 17.7 obviously is much, much better than that. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Yeah, our last budget that we approved in December was at 10 million. So now we're at 17.
Right.
We're in good shape.
Okay, next slide. Okay, as far as next steps, on the May 5th agenda, we'll have the first quarter budget proposed adjustments for your approval. And we will communicate any significant changes prior to that. As a reminder, the numbers you're seeing are preliminary. We have not closed the books. So a lot of those line items will change slightly, but not significantly that we would have to adjust any budgets that we've talked about. But if there is any change that we see based on closing the books or anything else that comes our way, we may have to make other adjustments, but we make sure to communicate that to you. By the way, we looked at X, Y, and Z, and so we need to make those adjustments, and we didn't talk about it at the working session, just so you're aware if there's anything new. And then as far as quarter two, that'll be on Monday. That's interesting, but July 20th. And besides the second quarter budget, we also look at 2027 and 2028. Again, we feel like we're well positioned for 2027. For 26, but we want to make sure, what does it look like in 27 and 28? We want to make sure that, the financial situation is at least looking decent in those out years. Again, we don't want any surprises, and, we just want to look at it just to make sure that we have enough fund balance, and we're starting to get an idea what projects will look like. And then from that standpoint, what sort of equipment can we justify? So it's good to, just look at a snapshot of what the out years are looking like. So again, we're not surprised when we get to those years.
And our millage expires end of 28, right?
I believe
The
so.
4-year millage.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And that's it, unless there's any other questions.
Gloria, yes, no?
No
Rob?
questions. Thank you.
Nope.
Good job.
Gwen,
Very good. Thank
you're
you.
good? Okay.
I did want to acknowledge some people. Tiffany and Connie have really helped with gathering all this information and putting it in the document. And Tiffany's good at keeping us in line and on track. So appreciate all their efforts. And Brent, those spreadsheets for the road projects seem to be more and more involved, and he just does a great job with keeping those up to date. And he's probably already got 27 and 28s going, right? But those are invaluable documents that I use to just keep track of things. And so definitely a team effort, but I'm pretty comfortable with where everything is right now. So.
Commissioner Yamas.
I'm sorry, I did have one question. I don't know if it's
Oh,
appropriate.
sorry, time's up.
I don't know if it was appropriate for this meeting or next meeting, but when we talked about the neighborhood,
Roads fund.
roads fund
Mhm.
and our other funds, some questions had popped up in my mind yesterday.
Sure.
If we have a project that's being covered under our other funds, or can we mix those funds? If one project is short funds, can we put from money into the other?
So my understanding is neighborhood roads fund can be used exactly like MTF, only it doesn't have the requirement of the match
Match.
requirement. Yeah, so
Okay.
can use neighborhood roads fund for everything we use MTF for.
I see. So if a township can't come up with the total 50% of the other MTF funds, can the neighborhood funds be used to fix that project or?
So it really, for us as an organization and the board, when we start to understand what amounts we're talking about receiving the neighborhood roads fund,
Yeah.
It may impact on how we set up our local road program.
Okay.
So we may make some adjustments, but I wouldn't suggest any adjustments until we understand the amounts.
Okay.
And it would be based on our asset management program, right?
Yeah, ultimately, you know, our local road program, we get a lot of input and decision-making from the townships on where to invest. There are so many needs. It's not hard to find a road that needs a little help, and needs to be invested in. And so, we're, now, attributing neighborhood roads fund to local roads. We'd be more in the driver's seat, making recommendations based on asset management.
Right.
And then the townships, if they wanted to go above and beyond those amounts, then they would get to choose on where the money would go. But if we're not asking for funding for a particular project, then we're more using asset management principles. And they are as well. One of the biggest components with local road investment, particularly in the pavement, is making sure that the water and sewer components, the underlying infrastructure is in sound condition. And so we're doing a lot of coordination, Brent and his staff, on, hey, we want to make sure that we're not going to pave a road and then have a bunch of water main breaks because it's aged infrastructure. So a lot of coordination takes place for that.
Thank you.
Okay. I think
All right.
we're all set.
Right.
Back to you, Mr. McDonough.
That's all we had for today.
There's
Wow,
no-
thank you.
Good session. Anything further, commissioners? If not, a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Support. If you would call the roll, please, Shelby.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCollum,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas.
Yes.
Commissioner Jeff Smurs.
Yes.
Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes, we are adjourned. See everybody at 1 o'clock.